All right. Hello, everyone. We'll give everyone just a few minutes here to get joined and settled. Welcome. My name is Ben Jacobson. I'm going to be your moderator today. And today we have an amazing panel of experts joining us who are all going to be talking about e-commerce and SEO and challenges that we have encountered and how we're overcoming those. So we're going to give everyone just a couple minutes to get settled in here today. It looks like we already have some people popping into the room, so welcome. If you guys can see me and hear me, let me know where you're joining us from in the chat down below. Always exciting to kind of see where people are joining us in. We have a relatively global audience. Looks like Boris is joining us from New York City. Fantastic. Awesome. So today we are going to, as I mentioned, be sitting down with a panel of experts, and we're going to be talking about e-commerce. This is part of our summit series where we're really looking to sit down with people that are inside of an SEO role inside of like an enterprise level organization. So we have a great panel for you guys today. We have joining us, of course, as always, Michael Johnson, who is going to be our Partnership Development Manager here at Page One Power. We have special guest Dana Tan, who is the head of SEO for Under Armour. We have Renee Girard, who is the Senior Manager of SEO at Crate and Barrel, and friend of Page One Power, Charles Taylor, who is the Director of SEO now at Fox. So we're super excited to have you guys joining us here today. I wanted to get started and just kind of give you guys a little bit of lay of the land as far as what we're expecting today. We have a couple of questions that are already populated for our panelists to be answering. But really what we're looking for today is to get audience participation and help kind of guide you guys through maybe even some of the struggles that you're facing inside of e-commerce as well. So if you notice down below, we have the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you guys have questions, if you have things that you would like to address to the panel, please pop those into the Q&A box down there. We're going to do our best to answer those kind of in stride, but as the conversation gets going, we do want to kind of keep in mind that there's a lot of questions that are going to be coming in, and so we'll do our best to get to those, and we'll try to address any unanswered questions towards the end. If not, then we'll do our best to find some sort of way to either answer these questions after the fact in email form or something along those lines. So stay tuned for that. I wanted to pass it off to each of our panelists to do just a brief introduction of themselves and kind of what they do at their organization. So Dana, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing these days.
Hey guys, Dana Tan here. Nice to talk to you all. Thank you so much for inviting me, Michael and Ben, and so fun to be here with Renee and Charles. I lead SEO for Under Armour. I've been there for about 3 years, but as a good friend of mine says, I've been putting food on the table with SEO since about 2003. So I started, as an affiliate marketer actually, and as the industry is matured, I gravitated towards SEO, and really e-commerce has always been my wheelhouse. And it's been 18 years and I still love it. So that's a good thing.
That's fantastic. Always a good thing when you're still loving it after that amount of time. So perfect. Thank you so much. Let's jump over. Renee, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing these days.
Sure, thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. I'm actually the Associate Director of SEO for Crate and Barrel, so I just got promoted as of 24 hours ago.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So I'm responsible for leading the SEO Center of Excellence across the organization and also being the SEO product owner. And I've been at Crate for about a year and a half. I'm really excited to say that my team is quickly growing. So if you're in the job market and you want to join a fast-paced enterprise org, I've got 4 spots open on my team, 3 of them being remote, 1 local to downtown Chicago. So feel free to take a look at the Crate job site or take a look at the listings on my LinkedIn.
That's super exciting. Fantastic. Again, congratulations. That's a huge opportunity for you. So That's great.
Thank you.
Charles, let's jump over to you. It seems like you might have also had a little bit of changes since the last time that we've talked. What do you
Yeah,
do?
yeah. So I'm currently the director of SEO over with Fox. I am the product owner for it, similar to Renee's position. We before then I was with Verizon, so I had a little fun with enterprise. I've been sticking with enterprise lately. Before that, I was working with e-commerce and actually I go back to the early 2000s as well. I was thinking to myself the affiliate pages, and I always like to joke. I did that for about 5 years, which is pure affiliate sites, and it turned into a bit of a churn and burn strategy. And I always joke that I'm a recovering black hat. You name it, I did it. I did everything, and I try. I still feel the pull to the dark side, but I always try to focus towards the light as much as possible. And and yeah, I always joke. There's two things I enjoy. I enjoy talking about. It's SEO and Star Wars. So feel free to ask either question. Although I think probably lean towards the SEO because I'm not sure any of the other panelists want to talk about Star Wars. Unless you do, then I'm good.
Well, if we get any of those SEO questions or any of the Star Wars questions popping in, we know who to go to. Awesome. And let's pass it over to Michael. Michael, tell us a little bit more about yourself and for those who are unfamiliar and kind of what you do here at Page One Power.
For sure. So I'm Michael Johnson. I'm the partnerships manager here at Page One Power. So I help build relationships with other organizations here, as well as look over the sales and onboarding of new clients here. So really kind of the idea with this webinar was we created this series where we just go through different industries and allow experts from within those industries speak to their experience. So last month we did B2B. We had Asia Frost from HubSpot, Kevin Indig from Shopify, and then also Justin Coons from DigitalOcean. So if you want to check out that one, it was a great webinar there. And then today, again, another dream team all-star cast of folks here today. So I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to have. One thing real quick, little housekeeping item. We are going to be doing from Page One Power, from my team, doing a free consultation one-on-one with anybody who's interested. So as we go through the webinar today, and as you're asking questions, we've got members of our team that would be happy to jump on a much more one-to-one conversation with you and help you troubleshoot issues that you're running into, whether it's your on-page SEO, content, or link building. So I know Ben's got a little poll he can shoot up for that. And if you all want to respond to that, that'd be great. And then we'll go ahead and dive into the conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Michael, for that. And again, like I mentioned, we do have the Q&A box down there at the bottom. So if you guys have questions kind of as we're going through, definitely feel free to pop those inside of there. Any other conversation that you wanted to kind of keep regarding the presentation today, or any kind of side notes, you can put those in the chat box. We're also going to be recording today's episode. So if for any reason you have to step away, something happens with internet, no worries, we got you guys covered, and we will have the recording available for all of our registrants today. So we're going to jump into it, and with today's discussion, we're going to kind of do a bit of a roundtable discussion. So we're going to be passing it off to each of our panelists to give their kind of input on the question, and allow each other to kind of feed off of each other's questions as well and answers. And of course, we encourage you guys to participate as well. So all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our very first question. And I wanted to start off with Charles. And Charles, tell us what makes a good SEO leader to you.
Couple words, consistency and transparency. And that goes in both directions, both up the line and down the line. I'm a big believer that SEO has to get away from this magic. We're all doing magic in the background. I hate that. It's not professional, first of all, I don't think. When dealing with my team, I think that the consistency is really important. That make sure you set your goals, here's what we want to do, here's our milestones, and then you give the folks the tools they need to get done with their job. There's nothing wrong with in my mind at least, there's nothing wrong with being kind of hard on people in the sense of making sure they're achieving their goals, making sure they're working hard, but you also want to make sure that do they have what they need? There's nothing worse than having an employee who you give them a goal, give them a task, and they don't have the tools they need to do it.
I think that's an excellent response to that. Dana, what about you? How would you kind of define what makes a good SEO leader inside of the space?
Yeah, I like Charles's answer. That term black box, I hate it. You know, it floats around. People, oh, SEO is a black box. No, it's not. We we have all kinds of tangible data. So I think um, being able to clearly communicate complex issues in more simplified ways. I think there's the leader you have to be for your team, and the way I look at that is I clear barricades, right? Where are you blocked? I will get the blockade out of the way. I will figure out a way to do that. For as a leader with my other leaders in the organization, I think really honesty, right? Um, Recently we went through a major migration, and I had to, communicate the risk level to leaders. And the last time I had done a migration of this scale, I was agency side. And agency side is a whole different thing. When you're internal, someone expects you to put a stake in the ground, right? And say, tell me what you really think is going to happen. And, it's not that you can't be a little wrong, it's okay, but they really want your best, most honest, educated answers for things, and to stand by that. They don't want like wishy-washy you know sort of answers, and it's okay to be wrong, as long as you own it, right? I think it's okay not to know. Sometimes it's okay not to, I had to learn how to say I don't know. As a leader, that was tough. That was tough for me, because I don't like being in that position. I don't think anyone does, but I think it's that honesty is really important for sure.
I think that's huge. I think being able to understand and admit when you're wrong or when you just don't simply know something, I think that's so huge. So I will definitely co-sign behind that as well. Renee, what about yourself? You recently received a promotion, so you're in a little bit more of a leadership role. Tell us what, in your opinions, would make a good SEO leader.
Absolutely. Well, I love what Charles and Dana had to say. And surprisingly, I picked different attributes. So I feel like the top four for me are curiosity, being adaptable, and having that like growth mindset, having passion for hopefully SEO, and being just a team player. For me, I feel like curiosity is number one and most important, because with curiosity comes that high level of ATD, or attention to detail, which is absolutely critical for SEOs, because we're constantly trying to solve different puzzles regularly. And it's all about root cause analysis and not getting too bogged down with the data and the details. And then for being adaptable, it's kind of going back to what Dana said, where you really have to like take a step back. Yes, maybe you're a subject matter expert, but you have to remove your ego, ask for feedback, be able to learn from those failures, and simply accept that we don't have all the answers. And similar to Dana, I struggled with this myself. And now I'm at that point where I feel like I can accept and ask for feedback and kind of take a step back with all the superlatives and the black and white thinking. And then real quick with team player, seems to be like such a overlooked quality, but you do have to learn how to play nice with others. I mean, I'm working regularly with about 15 cross-functional teams. That's US, Canada, and abroad. So for me, I have to really learn how to take off my SEO hat and think as a collective, the best for the customer and for the organization, which was hard for me because I started agency side, and paid and digital marketing SEO, they're usually very siloed. So now with that team player attitude, I can develop the business acumen, which will help me develop the follow the money mindset that we know executives love.
Love that. Perfect. Thank you so much. Michael, let's jump over to you. Tell us what, in your opinion, makes a good SEO leader.
Yeah, what I love so much about what each of these people talked about is each of these attributes that are being discussed kind of all come down to that big problem that I see a lot of SEOs run into, where SEO isn't just something that's done in a silo on its own. It's something that interacts with so many different parts of an organization, whether it's the content team, whether it's developers at the company, whether it's the product owners of different like products within the organization, how they promote those. When you get into link building, start thinking about there's like kind of a PR angle to it as well, of the outreach and things that happen there. So one thing I run into so often is SEO managers that we work with have a hard time getting, changes or getting things implemented that they need in order for the SEO to be successful. And a lot of it comes down to things like lack of transparency. When you can't clearly communicate what you're trying to do to the team and the reasons why behind you're doing what you're doing, it's harder to get people on board. And then, like Renee said, if you're not being a team player, then they won't want to be a team player for you. Like Dana said, if you're not willing to accept when you're wrong and not willing to be, to be vulnerable with people, right? That can cause people to not want to work with you and to support you. So everything that was said here just gels so well with kind of that real world implication. What happens when you don't do those things? It's harder to get buy-in from people across your organization to implement SEO changes that are needed.
I think we all know how difficult it is to get buy-in just in general, but especially if there's not that crossover there, then it makes the explanation and the implementation process just that much more difficult. So love that. Let's jump to our next question here. And this one's going to be going, we're going to start with you, Dana, for this one. And this kind of encompasses a good portion of what our episode's about today. And the question is this: what are some of are there any unique challenges that e-commerce brands specifically face when it comes to SEO? And could you give us a couple examples of kind of what that looks like?
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple different kinds of e-com companies, right? So you've got companies that are purely e-com. You've got companies that they've got brick and mortar stores and they've got a website, right? Like Dick's Sporting Goods is a good example of that. And then you've got the kinds of companies that are the manufacturer, and so they sell through other companies. So I'm thinking of Samsung. They were a client of mine way back when, right? So they manufacture things. They have an e-com website, but they also sell, at Best Buy and a million other places, right? And I think that Under Armour kind of falls into that category, right? We are a manufacturer. You can get our products at Dick's or East Bay or Kohl's, and when it's that scenario, and Samsung had the same problem, who really is going to go to the Samsung website and buy a refrigerator, right? Probably not. They're going to go to Best Buy and buy a refrigerator. And so I think that creates some unique problems from an SEO perspective. And this has been was educational at Samsung. It's educational at Under Armour, in that there's this mindset. People think they know who their competitors are, right? So, our competitors are Nike and Adidas. Not necessarily, right? So for men's tops in Google, our competitors might be Rhone.com or Eastbay or Dick's or Nordstrom even, right? And it's a unique problem. Amazon for sure, right? And we sell on Amazon too. So you're competing with people who are actually selling your company's products, and it makes for a very unique scenario, right? It's like, maybe sometimes it's not a bad thing for Best Buy to outrank Samsung for refrigerators, because they're going to sell way more refrigerators, right? So I think there becomes some strategy there in terms of what, as an e-com site, if we're one of those, we fit into that category like Samsung or Under Armour, what are the things that are really important and that we want to prioritize for our own website? And what are the things that are totally okay for Amazon to just go to town and outrank us for? And I think that's a strategy thing that's very unique in those situations.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Having your own competitors kind of selling your product too, I think, is definitely a unique challenge. Renee, let's jump over to you. Tell us what, in your opinion, are kind of some of the unique problems that an e-com company would face.
Sure. It's more pages, more problems. And with more pages comes more issues with trying to optimize for control, especially when it comes to as well as scaling and automating, especially at the product level. Products are going to make up your largest share of your pages when it comes to enterprise SEO or enterprise ecom, and it's very difficult to optimize for every single product. Let alone, I'm dealing with multiple brands, which can cause internal competition, similar to what Dana's experienced as well. And then we have 9 different countries plus different languages that are being translated based on the English version. So all in all, we're really trying to focus on crawl first, right? We can't neglect technical SEO as the fundamentals. And I found that when I first started at Crate about a year and a half ago, I calculated like the bad crawl budget loss was about 25% for the brands. And now we're under 5%. And we got there because we have dedicated SEO resources from a developer perspective. So I have my own SEO Scrum team. There's the SEO as an agile product mindset, and that helps us with continuous improvement and ensuring that we're constantly seeing SEO gains with every 2-week sprint. And then the product challenge, that product optimization challenge, I'm still working on. But I will say that more than half of my team's time is spent just focusing on a product SEO strategy. And that could include collaborating with merchants and buyers for seasonal planning and buying, as well as naming every single product on the website. So this is critical for SEO and PLA. And similar to what we've all experienced, I'm competing with big boxers as well, Amazons, and other name brand retailers. Like think about like a KitchenAid. So for me, what I have to do is try to pivot and do things like create metadata templates, copy templates. I mean, if you're enterprise and you're writing your own meta descriptions, I think you're wasting your time, to be blunt, because Google is going to be rewriting them at least 60% of the time or more anyway. Redirect logic has saved us a lot too. Product name updates happen all the time. And we've been able to create those kind of like rules so that we automatically have through redirects. We're making sure that pages are not going to become 404s. And then lastly, we're actually building bespoke SEO tools to be able to support bulk changes. So on Monday, we just deployed a tool to allow us to basically change every single product name and product title tag in bulk using a spreadsheet, which I know other CMS platforms probably have that built in, but us being bespoke, we don't. And that's already saved us hundreds of hours that we would have had to do it manually.
That's
And then,
awesome.
yeah. And then lastly, I do want to say that modernized content strategy, still working on that too, but there's definitely a battle between what SEO wants with long form evergreen content and what editorial wants with lots of imagery and video and lots of assets, which may not be text heavy and may not rank as well as the SEO type content.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Charles, let's jump over to you real quick. Tell us what kind of unique challenges e-com companies are facing from your perspective.
So this is going to kind of build off of what Renee talked about, because I ran into the issue of, it's funny you mentioned product names. So I worked for an e-commerce company. We had 5 or 6 different sites at one time. They were essentially selling all the same thing. And I'm betting there's a lot of folks on this call right now that they're in a similar situation. How do you do that? How do you do it to scale? Is it even worth it? We tried going the route of having people manually writing all that content. And honestly, I'm not sure it helped all that much. I'm not sure it really made the difference. I don't think it hurt us. Financially, we were able to do it pretty well, but I'm not 100% sure it worked. What I found helped one of the most, though, is the ability to automatically update. We came up with a scalable solution with our IT team to be able to rename products and do customized titles and meta descriptions. And that we found was amazingly helpful. And we were able to do okay, a little plug for an old Pages SEO magazine article. I wrote an article about how we did that actually, and we did kind of a Mad Libs approach, and we also kind of spun the content. We did it in a way where it didn't look like a computer wrote it, and we were also able to do testing. And from that testing, one of the big problems we had was Google recreating our title tags and meta descriptions, just changing those on the SERPs. And we found that if we made ourselves unique enough, number one, our title tags weren't being rewritten if we were more unique than everybody else. A lot of people just had kind of the same title tag. And we also have meta descriptions. If your search query doesn't show up in the meta description, Google will rewrite it almost definitely. So you have to keep an eye on Search Console and come up with ways of making sure that these other queries are showing up in your meta description. So That was a big issue for us. And then the kind of the second issue, and I'll let Michael kind of handle this because that's his expertise, is links. Nobody wants to link to product pages. Even at Verizon, you'd think that it would be easy for Verizon to get links to product pages. It wasn't as hard as regular e-commerce, but if you're not a large brand, no one's going to want to link to a product page, and that makes it tough.
Yeah, super accurate point there. I think having links to product pages is kind of the crux of any difficult strategy that we've kind of encountered. Michael, let's pass it off to you. Tell us what you have kind of experienced and what you're seeing as unique challenges for e-com companies.
Yeah, I loved a lot of the challenges been brought up so far. One of the ones that Dana had mentioned, just talking about how, you don't always know who your competitors actually are in search. So many times I'm talking to prospects, they say like, these are my competitors, because they think of them in terms like who people buy from. But I'm like, no, but in search, you actually got a whole nother set of competitors. But that concept of like e-commerce brands that sell through other channels like Amazon and other retailers and all those, a lot of things I think about like how to solve for that, maybe even take advantage of that a little bit is, yeah, you might not be able to outrank Amazon for your primary product keyword, but one thing that you'll have an opportunity to do is how can you get your brand in front of these people throughout the buying process? And you can kind of go back to what's the intent of Google? Like, what is the main reason people use Google for? I think in e-commerce, a lot of time in SEO, we think like it's where people go to buy things, when really Google's a place people go to get information. I say this phrase all the time. It's just Google's more like a library than it is a strip mall. And so the way that you can, set yourself up for success there is by having great informational, educational content that's answering questions and solving problems for your buyers at each step of the process. That way, if somebody can't buy Dana's, women's top for exercise, you know what, they might take in a piece of content about at-home workouts that then when they do go to Amazon to buy, while they were searching at-home workouts, they read an article on Under Armour and they're going to go buy the Under Armour top from Amazon once they do get there. So there's so many ways that you can use things like your informational, educational content as a way to create more opportunities for you to drive people, get them introduced to your brand. And if they do end up going off-site for that, then at least they'll buy from you at the end of the day, and you can get yourself from them that way.
Yeah, excellent point. So let's jump into, actually, we have a couple audience questions here. There's a few of them that are kind of hitting on that same point here. So this one says, how do you address implementing best practices at scale versus customization for top or highly competitive products where the accepted best practice may not be the best possible solution for that particular page? And let's start out this time with Renee. Tell us kind of how you would balance those two things.
Very difficult. I can't say that I have this figured out myself because we do have highly competitive products, especially in the kitchen space for Crate and Barrel. So we're competing against Kohl's, Amazon. What makes us different? So something I actually just recently found was exclusives. And I know that may not be something that everybody can do, but when we have an exclusive product, whether that be a color or a style, that's where we win. That's actually where I'm noticing we are in position one and beating KitchenAid, beating the actual retailer, beating the Amazon. So for me, it's like I went back to the kitchen merchants and I said, why should I purchase from Crate and Barrel if I can buy the same Breville or the same KitchenAid mixer elsewhere? And so that was like one of the top reasons that they gave me in terms of like a USP or unique selling proposition. So I guess taking my SEO hat off, it kind of went back to like marketing. Like, what can I do to actually prove like I deserve to be number one? Why do I deserve to get in that top spot? And how can I try to support that with SEO? And then the last plug is just metadata templates have been extremely successful for Crate and Barrel. One example was for customer reviews. People are looking for customer reviews, especially for super competitive products. And we found that adding the logic to the tag to automatically include plus reviews in the title tag actually did see a lift. I think it was like maybe 15% lift in queries that contain the word reviews. So that was a very easy thing that we could scale across every single page and allow us to be present and potentially compete with all the listicles, the publishers, the affiliates that are trying to get that best of reviews, best of 2021 tech content.
Fantastic. Charles, let's jump over to you. How would you kind of balance the the implementing of the best practices at scale versus having the highly customizable pieces of content for your product pages?
So one of the things I did when I first started in e-commerce, this was a smaller business, but it was when it was just me, and maybe I had an assistant. Maybe there was no way I was going to be able to do everything. So we did develop again some scalable solutions to doing our titles and metas and whatnot, and that was good for 75% of the products. But it's not good for everything. It's not good for the it's not going to be good for the competitive stuff. So what I did is I talked to the buyers. And I got a chart of our best sell, all of our products. And I did a little calculation where I looked at profitability and kind of popularity, which is like total number of sales, and tried to figure out where are we going to get the most bang for our buck. And it really was a small set of items initially. I was like, well, okay, that's the stuff I need to make sure I optimize manually. And then it was just pretty much grind it out. But it wasn't an undoable list. Yeah, it was like 100 and something, but it wasn't a list that was so huge I could never accomplish it. And then we saw a benefit from that, and it was nice to be able to say, hey, these are highly profitable items. We're number one, we're number two, or these are items that are really popular. Hey, we're in the top for these terms. So that was, it was good. It was a good way to kind of prove SEO as well to the organization at the time.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that approach to it. Being able to be very data driven in your approach and tackling it that way, I think is a great solution. Dana, what about yourself? How would you kind of tackle this problem of having to have highly customizable versus kind of finding that balance between the two?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of prioritization, right? And like Charles said, probably 20% or less of your products are really going to be the ones that you sell a lot of, or are the most profitable, or a combination of those things. At Under Armour, we get products for the website that are already prioritized gold, silver, bronze from a business perspective. So we already know what the business wants to prioritize. So that gives us some guidance, right? I'm the lone wolf right now at Under Armour. I just hired 3 people. So yeah, I've been alone for 3 years. Like doing the best I can. It's been a lot of education, really. I function as an in-house subject matter expert most of the time, right? But the cavalry is coming. There's relief coming for me in the next few weeks. But I think that Under Armour doesn't have a huge catalog. We're not like Home Depot with hundreds of thousands of SKUs. We've got maybe 2,000 to 3,000 SKUs, which isn't really, it's quite manageable from an SEO perspective. It's pretty small. So for us, scaling and customizing the high priority products is really not that much of an issue, as long as you just know which ones are the important ones that you're going to go after.
Perfect. Michael, let's jump over to you. Tell us kind of your approach when it comes to balancing these two things, or kind of what you see inside of Even Page One Power's clients.
Definitely. One thing I'll say is I'll let these folks speak with their expertise on this topic. This might be something that I got a lot of insight on. But one thing I did love that Renee said was the idea of taking off your SEO hat and putting on your marketer hat. That's something that so often in the industry, I think it's because historically, back in the day, SEO was so much of just like, how can you cram this many keywords onto this many times on this page? And it was so much more like this kind of science thing for SEO, where now more and more Google's getting more and more, it's getting smarter, it's getting more nuanced, and its understanding and user experience is playing a big role in things. So sometimes with SEO, it's just important to take off your SEO hat, put on your marketer hat, put on your UX hat, put on those different hats to think about what's going to provide the best experience possible to your audience on your page. How can you set them up for success as they're on your site? And that was just one point that kind of stood out to me during that conversation.
Perfect. So we're going to jump over to another audience question here. Question reads, how do you talk to internal stakeholders about trying to rank for the quote best product queries? Like, for example, best summer dresses. Is it reasonable to even have that goal as an e-commerce site of ranking product pages for best queries when searchers are probably looking for lists, reviews, or third-party recommendations. Let's see here. Let's start with Charles. How would you kind of approach that, and what are your thoughts on that?
So that can be a tough one, especially with enterprise. So this is my second org now, where you have to be very careful writing things like best on your website. As a matter of fact, I've had multiple conversations with legal from an enterprise where, like, you just can't say best. That's not something you can say. Or if you're going to say it, we better have some kind of third-party backup as why we're saying that. So then, but then the problem is we still have to rank for these terms. Like, there's traffic there. What do we do? So then you have to get a little creative. And how would we get creative? We'd get creative where we'd say, you know, are you looking for the best cell phones, or why do you need the best cell phones? We're not making a claim, and that's what happens in enterprise. You can't make a claim saying that you are the best. It's not that small businesses can just say whatever they want. It's just no one's ever going to go after them or anything like that. So that's kind of a little bit of a twist. I know the question wasn't exactly about that. Is it worth going after these kinds of things? Here's how I would approach best. If I were the person selling, let's just say tents, camping gear and tents, I'm not sure I would try to go after best tents, because yes, it would be a good word to get. Yes, you would get traffic, but everyone who reads it is going to know that you have an incentive to say, well, of course you're going to say you're the best. So how about talking about the best trails for beginners? Or the best states for, the best state to live for camping. You can do those kinds of things. That information is being looked at. You'll be seen as a qualified expert in that field, and then it kind of garners a little bit of goodwill between you and the customer. So I wouldn't approach it from the standpoint of trying to get the best for my products. I would be going for the best lists, and I'd be going for other best lists, and then introduce my products in there.
Awesome. I love that approach. Dana, what about yourself? How would you kind of approach this unique problem?
Yeah, there's always a list of forbidden words, right? That you have to adhere to from a number of things. Or even lately, we've had a couple of scenarios in product naming where legal has said that we must add UA in front of certain technologies, or else we could be vulnerable in some kind of way. So that kind of makes it complicated, because is anyone ever going to call it that who's not internal? Probably not, right? But along the lines of the best question, I really like the idea. Recently, we had a conversation about shoes, running shoes, basketball shoes, those types of things. And I think that, yeah, like Charles said, I think as long as you're creative about it and you're not making a claim, for example, answering the question, what are the best Under Armour basketball shoes for point guards? Great. You could create great content around that. You could incorporate the word best. It would be very authoritative and it would be authentic. Right. And so I think there are ways to go after that. Sometimes I think, though, you've got to, if you've got an executive pressuring you, there are times when they're going to ask you to target a word, and you're just going to have to do some education about why you shouldn't be going after that particular phrase or that particular word. The term UA comes to mind. So our paid search team normally bids on UA. If you type UA into Google, you'll see paid search from Under Armour showing up. Is UA, I mean, it's kind of like betting on or bidding on the letter T, right? I mean, do you really want to target those two letters in paid search? I mean, because you don't know what someone's looking for, right? And so I think you just need to get behind the intent of a term that has best in it. And is the intent of that term, does it align with your site and your business? Or is it really the intent is someone is looking for some kind of different information that probably doesn't fit the shopping experience or whatever your site is offering, right? So I think best could have a lot of intents, and I think you need to make sense out of it about why, should we go after this? Does it make sense from a business perspective? And then, take it from there. And then you have to be creative so that, like Charles said, you're not making claims that you can't get away with, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Renee, let's jump to you real quick. How would you kind of approach this issue, this question?
I'm actually approaching it right now. So I actually love this question. I will have to say that before my time, the term best outdoor furniture was Crate's #1 non-branded term for outdoor furniture. And we ranked #1 for years, doing nothing except putting the word best in the title tag. It did not show up in the copy. There were no puffery claims, nothing, just in the browser title that the customer didn't even notice. And it was really just for Google. So I say that not to piss everyone off, I guess, but it can work. And even years later, we still are the only retailer to rank for the term best outdoor furniture. And it still continues to be one of our top terms for our outdoor furniture category. With that being said, is it kind of deceptive? Is it kind of like, are you really the best? Yes, a little bit. So what I would prefer to do, which is also what we're doing, is 2 different tactics. One is Barnacle SEO. So who is ranking for best whatever? How can we show up on their sites? Because if they're going to say that we're the best, then we at least have that claim. That could be an opportunity for link building, affiliate, or any kind of type of paid media opportunity so that we can populate as many spots as possible in the SERP. The other tactic is the more correct way, which is developing content, such as how to choose the best rug, which we do have a content buying guide for, and we rank #1 for. I think that's probably the best approach based on the intent of what the user is looking for. But caveat, it can work if you try to experiment with it and do it in a way that will not be puffery or superfluous or cause a legal issue.
Excellent, thank you. And Michael, let's have you kind of finish up as well and tell us kind of your insight into this particular question.
For sure. One thing that kind of came out in my mind going through all this was just thinking about intent of search and what different phrases mean to Google and mean to users. So I just pulled up a quick example of sundresses while we were all talking here. I'm going to go off the rails a little bit here and use the screen share because I love it. But so like if you want to rank for sundress, right? You type in sundress, Lululemon, Amazon, Windsor store. You're getting retailers selling a product, right? Now, the minute you switch to best sundress, the results completely change. Now it's Vogue, it's Elle, it's Women's Health Mag, all selling you or writing articles about here are the best sundresses, right? So that's something to kind of think about as well, is if you've got a product page that even if you've optimized it to the max for best whatever, Google might not view that type of a page as the kind of page that somebody's looking for. They've maybe shifted that intent from being a buying intent to more of an informational intent. This person doesn't want a page that sells a sundress. They want a list of what the best sundresses are. So that was one thing that kind of stuck in my mind as well, is be really thinking about intent of search, not just wishing that you could get a keyword because you want it, but actually looking at what actually ranks for that keyword.
Excellent, thank you. And we're going to go through just a couple more of these questions here. Looks like we just had one come in. Is there a similar strategy with link building when your main competitors are conglomerates like Amazon or major websites like Healthline? And let's start this one off with Dana.
Link building. It's my least favorite thing in SEO. I will just admit it. I usually try to hire someone else to do it. And fortunately, when you're enterprise level, honestly, you don't think about it that much. I mean, in my experience, you think about monitoring your backlink profile to make sure that there's not stuff in there that you need to disallow. But, we just get links. I mean, that's just enterprise, especially, something where you've got popular athletes and sports and things like that. It's just very linkable, right? And enterprise organizations have PR teams. I think there's education sometimes that needs to happen, right? Because they don't understand what best practices in linking are, and maybe they should select anchor text in more strategic ways or whatever. But just from a linking perspective, for me as an enterprise SEO, I'm more often monitoring my backlink profile to make sure that, a couple things can happen. Negative SEOs out there, it happens sometimes. It's probably not as prevalent as some folks would like to think. And I think other things have, Google ignores a lot of links that are shady or whatever. But the one thing that can happen in a large organization is you've got all these other teams doing things, right? They've got little websites they're spinning up. They're spinning up microsites. This team's doing that or whatever. And it's all just going on at the same time. And these people don't often know SEO, or maybe they've partnered with an agency that doesn't know SEO or isn't thinking about SEO, and they bought a bunch of links, or the agency that they're partnering with is buying links, and that's something that they're being measured on, and everybody thinks it's a really great thing that they're delivering 10,000 links every month, and the SEO team knows nothing about it, right? Like, no one's talking to the SEO team about this because they don't know, right? And I think those are the things you got to watch out for. Are there other things moving in your organization where maybe someone's doing something they think is really great, that might actually be really harmful. So links is, I've always, maybe that's why I gravitated towards enterprise level SEO, because link building was just not ever my thing in the early days. I think you need to be a very specific kind of person to be a great link builder, like a really great salesman, right? And that was never me. So I don't know. That's my take on enterprise level link building.
Love it. Renee, let's pop over to you. Tell us your thoughts.
Sure. I'm kind of dealing with this as well right now. First off, it's like partnerships. We deal with collaborations, collections, designers, and you would be surprised, even in a large enterprise organization, the contract doesn't say you have to link back to us. And so that's my mission, try to change that so that influencers, anybody we're working with should already be linking back to us. So that's one example. I think the other example, kind of tying it back to best, is if you find that Google is ranking an article or a listicle publisher that claims that they're the best whatever, like the best blank product for whatever, but it's from like 4 years ago, reach out to them and say, hey, did you know that your article is ranking really well? You should probably update that. And then you should probably include me. That's actually something we're doing right now for our design trade program for like the B2B side with architects. And I was actually surprised. It was one of the top publishers in US, and they did not know that their article was the only non-ecom player to rank in the space for the top keyword that we wanted to rank for, design trade program. So they're like, oh my gosh, our article is stale, it's from 2018. This is embarrassing. We're going to update it and we're going to include you and create NCV2.
That's awesome. I love that. Charles, what about yourself? How would you kind of answer this question here about the link building strategy?
So Renee, I got to compliment you again. That is so important. If you're working in a large organization, make sure that the rest of the teams, are they doing things to make sure are you getting links? Like, oh, our contract says not to do it, but it would make perfect sense for them not to link back to you. So that I ran into that many times. Actually, I'm going to go to the premise of this question. I have a bit of a problem with the premise of the question, because the premise is assuming that links are the problem. How do we know that links are the problem? Links aren't always the problem. So when someone comes to me and says, I need more links, or we need to get more links, my first question always be, how do you know that? Now, any of you who've listened before, I'm big into testing, I'm big into data. How do you know what you know? And often folks, especially folks that have been in the industry for a few years, They remember that links used to be always important. And when you don't rank well, it must be because you don't have good links. I'm a big believer, especially in these highly competitive, we're dealing with the Amazons and the major websites. Do a deep dive in the SERP. You want to know everything you can about the first page results. Do they all have schema? If so, what kind of schema? What kind of structure? Where are they putting their keywords? What kind of information architecture do they have? Google has hundreds and hundreds of factors, and there are some tools out there that will go through all the factors, and it's like a fire hose. But it's really, really interesting to see some of the ways that your site might even stand out in a bad way. Maybe you have an internal linking structure with categories that makes it look like you're keyword spamming, because every single element, and I've seen this, every single element has the primary keyword in it. So when you look at the number of keywords on your page versus your competition, you've way over the scale. And maybe it's not that Google doesn't like you, but Google thinks you're doing something shady, or the vice versa. Everyone else is using these tactics and you're not. So you're never going to compete. So I'm a big believer in, before you declare yourself needing more links, sorry, page one folks, page one power folks. I don't want to have any heresy here, but before you declare that you need more links, deep dive, figure out, see if you can understand really what's going on there.
I think that's an excellent point. Absolutely. Michael, let's pass it off to you. Of course, Page One Power specializes in link building. Tell us kind of your thoughts when it comes to the strategies that could be involved for this.
For sure. Number one, Charles, no offense taken, because you're actually 100% correct. I mean, there are some situations where links just aren't the problem. And sometimes we have to have those conversations with clients. Like, we might be working with a brand that sells health-related products. And like you said, kind of Healthline was the example in this article, right? So they sell health products and they're really not that authoritative. And they're trying to rank for a very crucial health-related query that's important to somebody's health. It's Google's job to make sure that they're, especially when it comes to people's health, that's the whole point of the Medic Update, is like these things that really affect people's lives. We need to give them really good, trustworthy information here. So kind of my thought behind all that is there's some keywords you just don't deserve to rank for. You might have to kind of accept that my brand actually isn't the best site to rank for this. And you could build all the links in the world to that page and it might not rank. Same thing with product pages. Some product pages just aren't very worthy of links, and you might not be able to get links to this page. So sometimes links aren't the problem. A lot of the times it's about, so I just recently talked to a brand within a similar situation. They wanted to rank for a very specific protein shake. And for this type of protein shake, they've been struggling to rank for it for years, like not even like page 2, page 3, they're like page 8, 9, 10. And they're trying to figure out why. And immediately I showed them, I'm like, look at this competitor who's a little bit more authoritative. Yeah, so maybe links are a little bit of your problem, but again, links aren't going to be what takes you from page 8 to page 1, right? Links usually what takes you from page 2 up to page 1. So I was like, to close that gap, look at the site, and the website just had a huge library about this specific type of protein. Every question that somebody would ask about it, like Google returns them as the main result for that kind of protein, because their website shows that they are the brand experts of that kind of protein. They know their stuff. And so I was like, you need to show Google that you know your stuff on this topic by having all this kind of content that they do. Get that done first, see where you're at, then start building some links to see how you can increase your authority. So yeah, the answer that links aren't always the answer is pretty accurate. We see that sometimes on our side, and we have to do those remedial steps first to help our clients be in a position where then links can be the difference.
Love it. Perfect. So we are getting, it's crazy how fast time flies, but we are almost already at the top of the hour. So we're going to ask our last question here and kind of get this wrapped up. And we're going to start here with Renee for this one. Question from the audience: how do you keep up with unforeseen Google algorithm updates and recovering your ranking? So Renee, tell us kind of what your approach would be as far as steadying the ship when it comes to the unforeseen.
It's a great question. I take one large deep breath. I say a prayer to the Google gods. No, seriously though, we just went through this with the Google product reviews algo update. Our outdoor furniture space got hit super hard. We were ranking really well on page 1 for the terms outdoor furniture, patio furniture. Now we're gone. And I've been spending weeks trying to figure out what happened. We have not really seen much of a recovery. We've been trying to do like 10 plus types of quick tunings and internal links and on-page optimization, semantics. We thought we were like, okay, we got this. And you know what we ultimately ended up doing? Giving more budget to paid search so that we could rank for outdoor furniture and patio furniture. So sometimes you can only do what you can do. And sometimes we do have to pivot. It's not saying I'm going to give up. Actually, tomorrow, over 430 products will be updated using my bulk upload tool. So the word outdoor will be in all of those products that are currently missing. So I'm not giving up. I'm still going to try. But that's just an example. Like, we did all this deep dive, all this investigation. We're even considering the links and the affiliate plays that we need to go after to try to saturate the SERP for the specific queries that we've seen loss for specific algorithms. But it's definitely not easy. I'm still working on it, but that's what I'm doing so far.
Great. I love the approach. Charles, let's jump over to you real quick. Tell us kind of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I maintain a control, so maybe I shouldn't say, well, I won't say what the site is, but I maintain what I call a control site. And I put it up years ago. It's got best practices on it. I do nothing with it. I never touch the site. And then I watch Google's out. I watch the traffic, and I watch what happens after algorithms. It's amazing how many times my site gets better or gets worse after algorithm updates. I had it one time where it got slammed by an update, and then 3 weeks later, shot right back up to where it was. So, and that goes back to my theory that I had years ago that maybe SEO isn't a thing. And that kind of supports that theory. But no, it is a thing. Because we can test it and we can prove it. But my point is, so Renee said, take a breath. And I realize you're kind of taking a joke, but you're very serious. Take a breath. Everything doesn't have to be fixed immediately. You take a step back and you say, what's wrong with our site? So I have sites that I'm looking at right now that aren't doing that well and haven't been doing well for a while now. And so the first step is, all right, is there a silver bullet? So maybe that's the first thing. There is no silver bullet. That used to exist maybe 10, 12 years ago. There could be one thing. If you fix everything's fine. Unless something's fundamentally broke on your site, just get out of the idea there's one thing. Develop a list, like what is not right about our site. Redirects, crawling, content, whatever, page speed, mobile usability, whatever you want to say. Make the list. Figure out a priority in what you think will have the biggest impact plus effort. Prioritize that list and just start working through them. And then don't get obsessed with the day-to-day or even week-to-week movements. Just know that keep building your list, keep iterating on that list, and keep working through it. And you will eventually do better.
Love that approach. Awesome. Dana, let's jump over to you real quick. Tell us kind of what your approach is when it comes to trying to mitigate the unforeseen changes from Google.
Yeah, I think that we've all seen the ups and downs. Yeah, sometimes it's up from an update, sometimes it's down from an update. I think the important thing is you just constantly keep working towards that goal of doing what you know you should be doing. And you should be working towards that goal regardless of all the stuff that's going on. If Google comes out and says something like, well, now we're going to make page experience a ranking factor, then you might move some of the things that were on your list already up to the top, right? And you're like, well, now we know this is a ranking factor, so we're going to prioritize this differently. But it was always on the list, right? And or maybe they give you a metric that's new, or a page metric that's new, a measurement that's new, and that now, okay, we need to put that on the list and start paying attention to it. I think I always look at updates to see, were we impacted? Were our competitors impacted? Did we all experience the same thing? And to communicate to leadership that if we are impacted negatively, that it doesn't mean that something's broken on the site. Sometimes there's this implication that, oh my gosh, well, what's broken? Something must be broken. We had an old site for years, a proprietary platform. And when I arrived at Under Armour, the conversation was, oh, this old site, it's got so much legacy code, it's trash, it's all broken. But guess what? Before we migrated to the new shiny thing, during COVID, when everybody had to shop online, all of a sudden it wasn't broken anymore. And traffic and revenue were skyrocketing. Well, guess what, guys? The site wasn't broken. It was something else, right? So I love the whole silver bullet thing. Like, you have to be careful not to communicate, because that's what leadership is going to do. They're going to come to you if you feel like you've been impacted by an update, and they're going to say, okay, what are the top 2 things we can do right now that's going to turn it around? And you're like, here are the 50 things, and just because we do 40 of them doesn't mean we get 80% of the benefit. It doesn't work like that, And so I think just really communicating, and, you just have to hang in there, right? Hang in there, make things better the way you should. And the algorithms changes, they're just going to keep coming. So if that keeps you awake at night, then I don't know, maybe SEO is not for you, but it's life, right? I mean, things change all the time. So you just gotta roll with it.
I love that approach. Just rolling with it, I think is definitely some key advice that can be helpful. Michael, bring us home. Tell us a little bit what your thoughts are on this question here.
I mean, really from a link building perspective, people always ask me, like, how do you know your links are going to stand the test of time? Or how do I know these won't get me penalized in the future? And to me, it's like setting standards for yourself and for your company and how you do things, especially when it comes to things like link building. Are you going to take shortcuts that will help you in the short term? You go out and buy a bunch of links because, yeah, that might get you some great links and help you now. But when those get sniffed out in the future, you're in big trouble. How will that feel then? A lot of the times it's like doing things the right way now, even if it means you have to take a more longer term view on accomplishing your goals. So for us, clients ask us all the time, we want links back to these product pages, these category pages that just aren't very linkable. And we're always telling people, like, take a step back. Let's create pages that people want to link to. Let's use internal linking to support these pages that are deeper down your funnel. And then when we do find that occasional opportunity to get a link back to a product page that is natural and organic, we're going to snag it. We're going to get it for you. But like, to me, it's about doing things the right way, setting standards for yourself. If you find yourself in a situation where SEO to you or link building to you is about cheating the system or gaming the system, that's something that can have a end date on it in terms of its effectiveness. So, having sound principles is such a great way to set yourself up for long-term success.
Perfect. I love that approach. And I think that just speaks holistically to kind of your approach and how it should be for SEO in general. Try to have sound principles designed for the end user, and the rest of the stuff will fall in place kind of as it falls in place, and just do what you know how to. And yeah, I love that approach. Everyone, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're already past the hour. I appreciate all of the questions that came in. I appreciate all of our panelists, Charles, Renee, Dana, Michael. I appreciate you guys joining us today. I know that you guys all have a lot going on, so your time here is very much appreciated. For any of the folks who had to step away, again, like I mentioned, we are going to have a recording of this coming up here shortly. So typically about 24 to 48 hours after the fact, we like to have that up and available for you guys. If you have any questions, definitely feel free. I know at least Michael is definitely always open to any questions through Twitter or LinkedIn. Likewise, I imagine most of these panelists, if you send them a friendly hello, they're all very friendly folks. So I'm sure that they'd be willing to chat with you when they have time. So thank you guys all again so much for joining us. Thank you for your time today, and we hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot for the invite.
See you guys.